Whether it's bricks and mortar or online, many people are getting their feet wet in the waters of entrepreneurship and opening up small businesses. That's the topic today, and who better to talk to than Eileen Joyce? She's with the U.S. Small Business Administration. Let's get connected on Weekend Connection. Good afternoon to you, my friend. I welcome you to Weekend Connection on the Bible Broadcasting Network. I'm talking today with Eileen Joyce. She's the lead economic development specialist. Boy, that's a long title. With the U.S. Small Business Administration. Eileen, welcome to Weekend Connection.
Thank you for having me.
It is good to have you, and this is a topic that I've wanted to explore for some time. Small businesses, because small businesses have been on the rise over the years. Tell our listeners a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am from Tennessee, and I went to Auburn University and got a degree in finance, and then I got a MBA from the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga. Moved to Charlotte, North Carolina over 30 years ago, where I have been with the SBA my entire time. And it's been a wonderful, wonderful career here at SBA, and have seen and worked with so many different kinds of programs and worked with so many different kinds of business owners, and have seen women business owner rates grow, minority business owner rates grow, the invention of the internet and how that's impacted small businesses. So it's been a great career.
The Small Business Administration, how long has that been around? And give our listeners a brief overview of what SBA is all about.
Sure. SBA is over 50 years old. We actually had a different name back then, but we were turned into the Small Business Administration with the primary goal of making loans to small businesses. And we did direct loans, so they would apply with the district office staff. And then over time, we've changed directions so that we could impact more businesses. And so now we guarantee loans. We don't actually make the loans, we guarantee them, and we have several loan programs. Then we got involved with helping small businesses obtain federal government contracts. And then along the way, we've added resource partners who provide counseling and training so that business owners can be the best they can be and receive the type of training and assistance they need to grow their businesses.
Now, what kind of counseling specifically do you offer? And I'm assuming this is free counseling?
Yes, our counseling services are free, and we actually fund 4 different types of organizations. The first is SCORE. SCORE used to stand for the Service Corps of Retired Executives. Now they just call themselves SCORE, America's Small Business Counselors. They're mostly retired individuals who want to give back to the community, and they volunteer their time to meet with people who want to start businesses or have businesses and have a specific need, and they help them figure it out, how to write a business plan, what they need to do to get a loan. And with SCORE, what's interesting is since you might be dealing with somebody specifically that owned his own restaurant one day, and you want to open up a restaurant, you might be able to match with somebody specifically with what you need. And SCORE does a lot of counseling online. So if you're in Tennessee and you want to start a restaurant, you may end up talking to a fella or a gal in California who owns a restaurant, but that's all done online. That's one of our organizations, SCORE. The next one, we have women's business centers. Now, women's business centers are not in every location, but they're around this country. They obviously target women business owners. They deal with smaller women business owners, smaller businesses, and they do a lot of the same things as SCORE, but they focus on women, specific women's needs, sometimes women who are starting very tiny home-based businesses. They have different needs than other businesses, so they work with the women's business owners. We have 2 more organizations. The Small Business Development Centers are also around the country. In every state, they're affiliated a little differently. Many times they're affiliated with a local university or college. SBA provides half of their funding, and the state would provide the other half of the funding. They provide services similar to SCORE and Women's Business Centers, but they tend to go a little more in depth sometimes a little bit more sophisticated. They can work with higher tech companies who are looking for innovation research grants. They can work with bigger contracting companies that need to work on federal contracts for the Department of Defense or Department of Energy. They help clients get bigger loans. So SBA loans can go up to $5 million, and the folks at the Small Business Development Centers will review loan packages and business plans and make sure that the client is all set before they sit down with their lender. And last but certainly not least are the Veterans Business Outreach Centers. And most every state has a Veterans Business Outreach Center. One of their primary objectives is to work with transitioning veterans coming out of military service to decide if starting a business is an option for them. And so SBA has created, along with the Veterans Business Outreach Center, the Boots to Business program. And each state, most every state does have a military installation, and we teach those classes on base with the Veterans Business Outreach Center.
Are you doing anything as far as the Small Business Administration is concerned regarding, for example, getting into schools and teaching young people about opening businesses, about entrepreneurship?
Yes, we do. And that's a state-by-state basis. Each district office staff can determine where the needs are in their community. And a lot of it is local based. I've taught high schools and colleges, their business programs, and work with students who think that they have an idea or that entrepreneurship might be something they want to do, and then provide them some advice on, how to look at this going forward, taking the right kinds of classes or saving your money, not taking out too much debt, things to prepare yourself for business ownership. And there's also the study of the entrepreneurial mindset, that you may not start a business, but if you have an entrepreneurial mindset, then going to work for somebody who's an entrepreneur, that person would appreciate you thinking like this business is like your own.
Boy, that's a good point. And that's one thing that my wife and I had noticed in our son. I guess from the time he was a fourth or fifth grader. And we remember the time that he sold some brownies at his school that he went to. And boy, we could see the entrepreneurial mindset churning, and got to a school and even, quote, hired one of his friends to go into the teachers' lounges and sell the brownies. And he made a profit. I mean, we showed him what was spent on the ingredients to make the brownies, and he sold them, he and his friend, and showed him exactly how much profit he made.
That is so exciting. And it isn't so cool. You can see that excitement and you can see that mindset working.
It really is. Pleased to hear that the Small Business Administration is getting into schools and teaching some of these things. That's wonderful. You mentioned some of the services offered by the Small Business Administration, and I was thinking of this as well. I think a lot of people still think of businesses as being bricks and mortar businesses, and many of them are. However, we have seen an increase of people opening up online businesses. And for those who do that, they should be interested in the Small Business Administration too, right?
Absolutely. Whether you're bricks and mortar or whether you work from home, let's say you're a pet sitter, or you have an online business selling something on Etsy, you still need a lot of the same skills and services that bricks and mortar need. If your goal is to be a good size small business, something that you're going to derive your income from and not just a side business, you want to make sure you're doing it right. You're going to need a lawyer. You should have a lawyer help you with incorporating and figuring out which is the best for you. It's always good to have a bookkeeper or a CPA, somebody that's looking out for you on that side. You never know what kind of insurance you're going to need. Every state has different rules, so it's a good idea to do that. And obviously, you're going to have a business account with a bank or some other lending institution, so you need to make sure you've set that up right. Those are the core people that almost every business needs to be legal, legit, and successful.
And that's whether it's an online business or a bricks and mortar business, and that's whether you're driving an Uber or a Lyft or whatever it is, as well as you mentioned the CPA, where the money is taxed differently, And it can get
Hmm.
really confusing really quick.
Oh, and every state has different tax laws.
That's right.
If you're working over state lines, that's a whole other issue.
Mm,
And that's something too. Is if you look at these people, like your board of directors, is this the team that is going to provide you advice? I talk to a lot of business owners that will say to me, "Oh, my lawyer, he just did my incorporation and that was it." Well, do you ever just talk to him about other things? Does he know who you are? Does your CPA just give you a tax return every year but doesn't explain what the numbers mean? Are you growing? Why are your ratios changing? Are you just checking a box, or are you really using your team to grow your business?
And speaking of legal issues, and I don't want to mention any names or anything like that, but as someone who has been with the Small Business Administration for quite some time, long before some of these online legal services came into being,
Right?
oh, I hear the laughter in the background. Is that something you would recommend, or you would say, I don't know about that?
Online businesses are great.
No,
In fact,
I'm talking about the legal services offered online where, say, for example,
oh,
you can incorporate for X number of dollars, you can do this for X number of dollars, etc.
I think if people read the fine print and understand exactly what is happening, then it can be beneficial. But I've talked to a lot of people here who thought the service was going to renew everything for them and send a bill. Well, in North Carolina, that doesn't happen. And then the North Carolina Secretary of State would dissolve your corporation. And then you have to start all over again. So you just can't assume that everything's going to be taken care of. The responsibility is ultimately the business owners. You just have to really pay attention to what's being offered, and is it to your benefit. If you're just going to do a part-time business and you're not planning on growing your business, perhaps that would be the online people might be an easier way to go. But if you're going to grow and you think you might end up buying a building one day, hiring people, then I would talk to an attorney.
Face to face is what you're saying, usually the best way to go.
I find that's true with banking too. When, of course, I'm going to show my age here. Back when all banking was done face to face, you develop that relationship. Well, today so much is done online, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you have a face to face relationship, they have a chance of having a deal worked out to your benefit, especially if something's not going 100% correct. In fact, SBA's got a new lending portal called Lender Match. One more tool for the toolbox that if you've talked to several banks and nobody wants to lend you money, you can enter your information into Lender Match and it sends it out to the universe of lenders that have registered. And you might get a hit with a lender from South Dakota, but it doesn't matter. A loan is a loan, but it's just not somebody who's local. But we're doing more lending through Lender Match. It's a great alternative for people who are busy and who don't have relationships with banks. It's working.
Well, Eileen, are there any other things that you'd like to touch on before we wrap things up on Weekend Connection today?
It's real important that you have your plan in hand and have that business plan or your loan proposal reviewed by one of our many free counselors so that you've got everything in place before you talk to a lender. The lender wants to see that you've done your homework, that you know the process, that you understand what the cash flow is going to be for the business. Because bottom line, the banker wants to make sure that you're going to repay the loan. Yeah, and SBA wants to make sure that you're going to repay the loan too. Our big 3 C's are counseling, capital, and then the last one is contracting. And so in terms of federal contracting, we work with business owners who are interested in federal contracting. There's many different types of initiatives within federal contracting. So there's the women-owned small business set aside. There's the hub zone set aside. There's preferences for small businesses. There's different options that a small business can work on in order to get involved in government contracting. But a lot of people come to me wanting to get into government contracting because they are a woman or they're in a hub zone. And it's more important to find out first if the federal government is buying or using your product or service before you decide to really get into government contracting. Start small, start with city contracting, county contracting, work your way up to state contracting. And that's usually the path for a lot of businesses. Some people can jump right into federal contracting and become very successful. But if you're not familiar with contracting, you better have a lawyer because it is a contract, and work from there.
Eileen, thank you so much for coming on to Weekend Connection today. I really appreciate the time you've taken in explaining some things regarding the Small Business Administration. And if people would like to get in touch with you, how would they do that?
They can call me at 704-344-6787.
And your email address is?
Eileen, EILEEN .Joyce, JOYCE, at SBA.gov.
Eileen Joyce, thank you so much for coming on to Weekend Connection today. I really appreciate it, and I think our listeners do too. Thanks so much.
Thank you for having me.
That phone number, once again, is area code 704-344-6787. And the email address, eileen.joyce@sba.gov. Weekend Connection is a public affairs program of BBN.
Thank you for listening to this feature, a production of BBN, the Bible Broadcasting Network. BBN provides 24-hour Christian programming, great Christian music, and Bible teaching. Listen to BBN by clicking the link in the description.